bud, dope, gas, grass, ganja, reefer, weed, marijuana. All of these are the terms to describe one thing: cannabis. In this video, we're going to cover the growing cannabis industry and Jay-Z's recent entry into the space. When we think about marijuana today, we probably think about smoking, euphoric highs, but marijuana actually has a very ancient history. To understand cannabis today, we must first cover cannabis's initial rise, fall, and reemergence. The first documented recording of cannabis dates back to a medical journal in China called the Materia Medica that is said to be written by the Divine Father Shen Nong. Nong studied the medicinal benefits of cannabis, discovering that the plant was helpful in aiding ailments like gout, malaria, joint pain, and poor memory. Nong's medical journal quickly spread throughout Central Asia. As a result, so did the cannabis plant. In India, the cannabis plant was even mixed into a drink called Bang. Not like Bang, the energy drink that we have today, but Bang, an edible preparation of cannabis or a cannabis smoothie. In 1492, when Christopher Columbus made his iconic journey to the New World, it is said that even he carried a rope made out of hemp. For those who aren't familiar, hemp is a variety of the cannabis sativa plant. At the time, it was no strange occurrence to see cannabis being traded between countries. It didn't make you some type of drug lord just because you were exporting a plant that was used for much economic growth. The cannabis plant was used to make material goods such as cloth, paper, rope, and even pottery. King James I decreed that American colonists of Jamestown would need to step up efforts to do their fair share towards supporting England. As a result, the Virginia Company enacted a decree in 1619 asking landowners to grow and export 100 hemp plants to help support England's cause. By the 1800s, cannabis plantations were scattered all over the US, and it was a regular commodity used for trading. It was also being infused into candy called hashish candy that was used to treat nervousness and depression. All was well in the world of cannabis until the early 1900s. The attitude towards cannabis has started to shift. It was no longer seen as this great tool for economic growth or this remedy for mental ailments. Cannabis was starting to be seen as dangerous. There was more emphasis being placed on drug abuse because of things like alcohol and opiates. The gravity of this so-called danger would only magnify as the years went on. In 1906, the Food and Drug Act legally deemed cannabis as dangerous, and in order for it to be sold, it would have to be labeled. This concept probably seems foreign to us today because many of the things we buy are already labeled, but at the time, this was a really big deal. Following the Mexican Revolution of 1910, many Mexicans immigrated to the United States and popularized cannabis for recreational use through smoke inhalation. They called the drug marijuana. In 1913, California made history by becoming the first state to ban marijuana growth. This is rather ironic today because California is kind of seen as the cannabis capital of America. 2 decades later, the Great Depression plagued the US and people wanted to find someone or something to blame all this devastation on. So, instead of turning to the financiers that were directly responsible for causing the Great Depression, they turned to the next best thing. Black and Mexican communities became the scapegoat that racist and xenophobic politicians used. Specifically, Henry Anslinger, a racist federal agent, had a field day with this. Quote, "There are 100,000 marijuana smokers in the US, and most are Negroes, Hispanic, Filipinos, and entertainers. Their satanic music, jazz, and swing result from marijuana use. This marijuana causes white women to seek sexual relations with Negroes, entertainers, and others." Anslinger also said, "Reefer makes darkies think they are as good as white men." If you were a racist white person in the 1930s, this almost solidified the idea that marijuana had to go. The last thing they needed was for darkies to think that they were as good as white men. Anslinger was rather clever in the methods he used. He made sure to use the term marijuana rather than the scientific term at the time, cannabis or hemp, to make the drug sound more foreign and directly associate the drug with immigrants. He made sure to highlight the negatives of the drug, saying marijuana is the most violence-causing drug in the history of mankind. If there's one thing that Anslinger was besides racist and xenophobic, it was devoted. Anslinger went on to make a movie about the drug depicting innocent white people using marijuana and then turning into bloodthirsty killers. He would also go on to write the Marijuana Tax Act of 1937, which would require those selling marijuana to pay an extremely high tax. Most approved the law without even knowing much about marijuana other than the propaganda that Anslinger was spreading. William Woodward, a representative for the American Medical Association, tried to argue against the bill, saying that outlawing the bill loses sight of the fact that future investigations might show that there is substantial medical use for cannabis. Unfortunately, his words fell on deaf ears. The law was passed. Later that year, October 2nd, 1937, Samuel Caldwell would be the first person arrested for selling marijuana. A variety of laws will continue to be passed, increasing the penalty for possessing marijuana, such as the Bulks Act in 1951 and the Narcotics Control Act in 1961. You would think that all these strict laws would lead to less marijuana use, but with most laws, the results were the opposite. Marijuana became even more popular by counterculture and anti-establishment folks that enjoyed smoking it while indulging in their anti-establishment activities. In 1969, the Marijuana Tax Act was ruled unconstitutional for violating the Fifth Amendment by the Supreme Court. As a result, Congress passed the Controlled Substance Act. The law placed drugs in categories based on how dangerous they were, and marijuana was listed as a Schedule I drug, better known as the most dangerous kind. Ronald Reagan would go on to have a field day of his own in the 1980s with his war on drugs.
What we've been able to achieve has been done with your help, with us working together as a nation united. Now we need your support again. Drugs are menacing our society. They're threatening our values and undercutting our institutions. They're killing our children. From the beginning of our administration, we've taken strong steps to do something about this horror. Tonight, I can report to you that we've made much progress. 37 federal agencies are working together in a vigorous national effort. And by next year, our spending for drug law enforcement will have more than tripled from its 1981 levels. We have increased seizures of illegal drugs. Shortages of marijuana are now being reported. Last year alone, over 10,000 drug criminals were convicted, and nearly $250 million of their assets were seized by the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration.
There was a lot of propaganda being spread as a result of his campaign, and minorities were being disproportionately targeted, although they used drugs just as much as non-minorities. But cannabis could not be oppressed forever. Towards the end of the late 1990s, the culture around cannabis shifted once again as it started to be featured regularly in entertainment. Anti-marijuana propaganda was also starting to fade, setting the scene perfectly for marijuana legalization. The first state to legalize marijuana for medical use was California in 1996. The first states to legalize marijuana for recreational use were Colorado and Washington in 2012. As of today, 35 out of 50 states have legalized marijuana for medical use, and 15 out of 50 states have legalized marijuana for recreational use. Many jurisdictions across the country are decriminalizing marijuana, so if you're caught with small amounts of marijuana, your offense is treated similarly to a traffic violation. Legalization is like music to the business world's ears. It wouldn't take long for the billion-dollar cannabis industry that we know today to start forming. The popularity of weed is still growing at a rapid rate. In a study done in 2017, more than half of American adults said that they've tried weed once in their lifetime. 55 million Americans said that they currently use weed or they have used it once or twice in the past year, and 35 million Americans said that they regularly use weed. In 2018, Canada legalized marijuana for recreational use, and some of the big players in the cannabis space put up some huge numbers in 2020. Aphria, located in Leamington, Canada, did $550 million in revenue in 2020. Canopy Growth, located in Smith Falls, Canada, did $400 million in revenue. Aurora Cannabis, located in Edmonton, Canada, did $54 million in revenue, and Tilray, located in Nanaimo, Canada, did $33 million. Don't think Canada is having all the fun. Some US-based companies are putting up big numbers as well. Curaleaf, located in Wakefield, Massachusetts, is the biggest marijuana company located in the United States with a market cap of $8.6 billion. In 2020, they did $626 million in revenue. Trulieve, located in Quincy, Florida, is another large cannabis company based in the United States with a market cap of $3.9 billion. Trulieve has not yet reported their 2020 total revenue, but in Q3 of 2020 they did $136 million. Jay-Z, the rapper and business mogul himself, decided that too much money was being made in this industry and he wanted a piece of that pie. From selling drugs in Brooklyn to creating an entire business around cannabis, it's like Jay-Z's life has come full circle, but with an opportunity to make way more money than he was making in his youth. Jay-Z has been on a roll lately. He recently sold Tidal for $300 million and also sold a 50% stake of his company Armand de Brignac to LVMH for $300 million. Towards the end of 2020, he launched his own cannabis company called Monogram in partnership with Caliva, located in San Jose, California. A very strategic partnership for the billionaire, similar to the ones that he has made in the past. Jay-Z is sitting on a whole lot of cash after his recent liquidity event, and we can assume that he will be deploying a decent amount of that capital to this venture in the future. We don't know what Monogram's future holds, but if Jay-Z's track record is any indication of where the company is going, we will likely see Monogram doing millions of dollars in revenue over the next few years. Jay-Z himself said, "Anything I do, I want to do correctly and at the highest level." With all the potential in the cannabis industry, Caliva's expertise and ethos makes them the best partner for this endeavor. We want to create something amazing and have fun in the process. So, if you're wondering if the cannabis industry is profitable, the short answer is yes. In an article by American Cannabis Consulting, they said, despite all the challenges and regulations, nearly 90% of operating dispensaries, wholesale cultivators, and infused product companies report that they are profitable. More than a quarter of dispensaries generate annual revenue exceeding $1 million. If you want to know how to get a piece of the pie, check out this video by Tommy Bryson and videos by Green Growth CPA that talk about some of the startup costs and other important factors to consider. In the years to come, more states will face the inevitable fate of legalizing marijuana for recreational use, allowing opportunities for many startups to thrive in the cannabis space, and you can be one of those startups.
Everybody's gonna eat. Everybody wanna get this money. Everybody can be happy. We don't have to be on Front Street all the time, baby.
Thank you so much for tuning into this video essay on cannabis. Subscribe to the channel for more on topics related to business and economics. And always remember, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life.